Welcome to the Mischief Maker broadcast, where chaos, creativity, and common sense collide. Your host, Joel Freeman, was kicked out of high school in Alberta, Canada. He left home at 17 and hitchhiked around North America as a long-haired hippie and dope-smoking fool. He made a 180-degree change, becoming one of the first chaplains in the history of the NBA. As a professional speaker, Joel has traveled to well over 55 countries. His many books have been published in 28 foreign translations. Pieces from his Black History collection have been seen by millions at the United Nations and many other venues. And now, the Chief Mischief Maker himself, Dr. Joel A. Freeman.
Hey guys, Bigger Baby Joel here. Guess what? For my birthday, I got a humidifier and a dehumidifier. I put them in the same room and let them fight it out. Well, there you go. A dehumidifier and a humidifier at the OK Corral. I wonder which one won the fight. I'm not sure. But Bigger Baby Joel has weighed in. We have a great show tonight, and you're going to really enjoy him. His name is Chris Broussard. He's a TV personality, a sports analyst, especially for the NBA. And he served also as a journalist. He's the president of something called the King Group, King Foundation. And they have big events for men. And just you're going to enjoy this. For those who are joining us live, you know who you are. You can write in your questions. Mel Albin, he will be the curator of the questions. If they're germane to the show, he'll come up and I'll be looking for your question. We'll read it and Chris can knock it out of the park. Also, take a look above. There's a QR code. That is a link tree with all the different information about the Mischief Maker Show. We also get into the definition of a mischief maker. In fact, I only interview mischief makers. So Chris Broussard, dear friend, he's a mischief maker, believe me. You'll find out. But I'm hoping that this show will help you become a mischief maker in your part of the world. We have viewers from all over the world that are tuning in right now, and well, thank you so much for taking time out. We will deliver something that you'll really be thankful for and enjoy. Now, Chris is just a remarkable human being. He has served sports' biggest moments. He's covered them, the stages. He's hosted the New York-based show on location from Fox Sports, marquee events, including the Super Bowl, World Series, Indianapolis 500. And while he's a veteran journalist, a perspective that he brings with him, it's shaped by decades of experience in the profession. And he rose to national prominence as an NBA reporter in the New York Times, the paper of record, where he covered the Knicks and the Nets, as well as the NBA at large from 1998 to 2004. And then he began his career writing for the Cleveland Plain Dealer. In 1990, becoming the Cleveland Cavaliers beat writer for the Akron Beacon Journal in 1994. Then he joined ESPN in 2004, and he's contributed across many different platforms. Born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I just can't wait for him to come on. You know, I'm a writer of songs, and my new album is coming out soon. My first album. It might be the only album. Maybe I'll just say it's the only album. I'm not sure. But it'll have about 15, 16 songs on it. Most of them in the blues genre. This song that you're going to hear tonight is called You Gotta Know Your Why. Mel, let's hit it.
There's always someone doubting, throwing shade across your name. People pointing, whisper, shouting, trying to make you feel some shame. But when your wire's steady burning like a beacon in the night, no, who can pull you under when your heart knows what is right? Gotta know your why, connected to the Most High. When pressure mounts, look it in the eye. Valleys low or mountains high, it's the truth that breaks the lies. You can carry any burden when you know your why. There's always something, some new trouble, some new test. Plans that crumble with no warning. The weary have no rest. But when your why is carved in granite, not in sand that shifts away, no, what can break your spirit or derail the rest of your day? There's always some time entangled, dreams delayed or doors shut tight. Moments where the clock feels ruthless, stretching morning into night. But if your why becomes your compass, pointing forward through the weight, no one can steal your promise or rewrite what God creates. There's always some place uncertain, foreign ground or strange skies, where your footsteps in quicksand and your courage is surprised. But when your why becomes your guide, like a lighthouse bright and tall, nowhere can stop your journey when your purpose starts to call. There's always some method missing, steps unclear or roads unpaved. Times you feel the silence louder than the answers that you crave. But if your why is strong and rooted, faith will show you what to do. No, how can halt your progress when your why pulls you through? Gotta know your why, connected to the Most High. When pressure mounts, look it in the eye. Valleys low or mountains high, it's the truth that breaks the lies. You can carry any burden when you know your why. So when your journey feels uncertain and battles multiply, and you're searching for a reason when your plans go awry, remember purpose isn't fragile when it's anchored from above. Your why is rooted deep in God and carried on a life of faith and love.
Just before we bring Chris on, I want to give you kind of a sneak peek into the behind the scenes of writing that song. When you have the 5 W's and the H, the Y is at the center, and then it gets assailed by who? People that come against us. The what? Oh my goodness, the car broke up, and is broken. I need a new roof on. And then comes the how. How are you going to do this? We don't have enough money. We don't have enough time. And then the when. And all the different things start assailing against the why. And that's how I began to craft this song. So each stanza I dedicated to one other element that would come against the why. I hope you enjoyed that. Let's bring Chris on, and let's see. You there, Chris?
I am here. And first, let me say this, Joel. Number one, I love that song. Number two, I didn't know you could sing like that. And number 3, is that on Spotify or somewhere I can get it? I love that. That was great.
The album's coming out. I'll make sure you get a copy of it when it comes
Yeah, it
out,
was
probably
fantastic.
around September. So I'm looking at right now.
Really impressed, though. That was
Thank
great.
you so
Yeah,
much.
seriously.
Well, let's
I was
just.
not expecting that.
Well, thank you. That means a lot, Chris. So, most of the time when you're doing this, it's about, what's LeBron James went to the 76ers. What does that look like? And all these egos on the team. And are they going to be able to work together as a team? All this kind of stuff. I want us to kind of step away from that, give you a reprieve from having to talk in that direction. Both of us come from NBA background in the sense of, I worked for 20 seasons as chaplain for the Bullets, the Wizards. You spent many years, interviewing people, going in the locker rooms and being the beat reporter and all this kind of stuff. But I'd like for us to take a look at your where you grew up in Louisiana, a little bit about your family, and the impact of your family, your siblings, and people, neighbors, and teachers in your life that has helped to inform who you are today.
Yeah, so I was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I'm African American Creole. So my father's family is from like Opelousas, Louisiana, and that's where he was born. My mom's family's from Baton Rouge, and I was born there. But as a baby, we moved from there to Cincinnati, Ohio. My dad got a job. He worked with Travelers Insurance Company as a personnel manager. And so he grew up in Cincinnati. His dad had moved up to Cincinnati from Louisiana after World War II, which he fought in, my grandfather. And they stopped. My grandfather moved up he met some African American soldiers in the war who told him it's better up north. You got to get your family out of the South. And so
What year was that approximately?
well, it was right when he got back from World War II. My dad was, I think, 3 or 4 years old, and my dad when he moved to Cincinnati. So my dad was born in 43. So around 1946, when my grandfather took a train up to Cincinnati, and he stopped in Cincinnati because that was the first stop above the Mason-Dixon line. And he got there in 1946, got himself a job, and once he got settled after a few months, went back down to Louisiana and got my father and grandmother. And my dad grew up in Cincinnati. And my grandfather had a 4th or 5th grade education. His wife had a 7th or 8th, maybe 9th grade education. But then in Cincinnati, they put all 4 of their children through college. They went to Xavier University, the HBCU down in New Orleans. And then all 4 of them went to college, graduated. All 8 of their grandchildren, including me, have graduated. And then many of their
Incredible.
great-grandchildren, who some are still college age or even younger, but all that are college age have graduated. So yeah, it was my grandfather's decision to move up, leave the South, leave Louisiana, where they experienced a lot of racism, and go up to Cincinnati, just changed the destiny of my family. And
Wow.
I would not, there's no way I would have written at the New York Times, worked at ESPN now, FS1, Fox Sports 1, without, the sacrifice that he made. So I'm grateful. My family is close. My cousins and first cousins and everybody from that under those 4 siblings, so to speak. And I've been.
You youngest, oldest, the middle?
I'm the oldest grandchild.
Okay.
And I have one younger brother, Terry, who lives in Detroit, Michigan. And so my dad, when we moved to Cincinnati, and my dad worked for Travelers Insurance Company, we got transferred a lot. So when I was 7, so after 7 years, we got transferred to Indianapolis, Indiana. Then we were there 4.5 years. Then he got transferred to Syracuse, New York. We were there a year and a half. where I was in junior high school. Then we got transferred to Des Moines, Iowa. I spent 2.5 years in high school in Des Moines. And then my junior year, we got transferred to Cleveland, Ohio. So I finished high school in Cleveland, went to Oberlin College in near Cleveland, and then met my wife, my future wife there. She's from New York City. And we've been married now 31 years. We live in New Jersey. Yeah, she's a medical doctor. And we have twin daughters who are 28 years old. One got married a year ago, lives in Los Angeles. The other one is getting married Sunday. Well, she lives in Philadelphia. She's getting married here in New Jersey. And so, so that I've been blessed. My family is doing well. And
you have two daughters, right?
Yes, two daughters, twin daughters.
Now, is it more difficult, you think, raising daughters than sons? What's your perspective on that?
That's a great question. Because my dad had two sons, and I don't know, because I just have the two daughters. I did want sons. I think ideally I would have wanted one, or one of each.
Both.
Yeah. But I'm obviously, sports is a big part of my life. And I did envision, like, my boy, I'm going to play sports with him and this and that. But once I had daughters, I had there was no part of me that was like, man, I need a son. I got to have a son. Let's have one more so we can have a son. I just was all into them and poured it all into them. And I have no regrets about not having a son. I personally feel like, for me, I feel like it was easier. It would have been easier to raise my daughters than sons. That my daughters feel differently. They want boys, and they feel like it'll be much easier to raise boys than girls. But my girls did not give me any real problems, and so I personally do think it's easier to raise girls. But that's just my perspective.
So when the boys start coming around, did you have a pistol sitting beside you, and just have a stern look?
You know what I did? Because they do come around. They did come around, and so when my daughters got to dating age, which was about 16 or 17, whenever they went to a dance like homecoming or prom or whatever, or dated a boy regularly, to a degree, I would always meet with that young man individually, one-on-one. We would meet at Starbucks. I would take him out to lunch, whatever it might be, and just talk to him about, respecting my daughters. I wouldn't try to scare him or anything like that. My daughters have been raised a certain way. I expect them to be respected. I don't want them to be pressured into trying to do anything that they don't want to do. And, and my daughters always like that. And the young men, I mean, obviously they wouldn't have told me if they didn't like it. But over time, because one dated one of my daughters very seriously, and the other one is getting married on Sunday to my daughter. And they respected that and really liked the fact that I did that. And Joel, I always thought no one ever did that with me when I was dating girls.
Yeah.
And I thought about it, and the reason I did it was because I felt if a father had done that with me, taken me out or met me and told me these things, it would have made an impact on me.
Oh, sure.
You're still a young man. You still have your hormones and all that, but it would have really put something in my head to, man, I need to make sure I treat her right, and so that's why I did it.
That's great. Now, as a young man, you look back on your career thus far. What was it? When was the moment when you realized that you're going to be doing what you're doing?
Well,
what was that like? Take us to that moment.
Yeah, the way I determined it, I was a sophomore in college playing basketball, Division III small college basketball. And I looked around as a sophomore at my teammates, my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, other friends, and they all had plans. They knew what they were going to do. My wife knew she was pre-med. She was going to medical school.
Mm-hmm.
Some teammates were going to law school, were going to study public policy, studying to be engineers, whatever. They all seemed to know where they were going after graduation. And I really didn't have a clue. And I got scared because I said, man, I
Mm-hmm.
have 2.5 years to figure out what I want to do with my life and how I can become a responsible adult. And so I came up with a formula to figure out a career. I said, let me take something I enjoy, which was sports, plus something I'm gifted at, which was writing. I always was gifted as a writer. And so I said, let me put those two together and see if I can make a career out of it in sports writing. And fortunately, I had good grades. So once I determined what I wanted to do, opportunities opened up for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got a summer internship at the Cleveland Plain Dealer after my junior year of college. Plain Dealer was the largest newspaper in Ohio at the time, and did well in that. And then that really is what started my career. I got another internship after graduation at the Indianapolis Star, and then the Plain Dealer hired me that fall. And I started out covering high school sports. I actually started out just sitting in the newsroom answering phones. But
Mm-hmm.
then in about 9 months,
Getting hot tips.
yeah, no, I was just, I mean, this is 1990 and
Yeah.
1991. So this is
Pre-digital.
before pre-internet. So what would happen, Joel, it was several of us that would sit in the new sports department,
Mm-hmm.
and answer phones. And when people had questions, like guys would call up and say, my buddies and I are trying to figure out what was the starting offensive line for the Browns in 1977.
Hmm.
And if you didn't know it off the top of your head, which most of us didn't, they had almanacs around the sports room that you
Mm-hmm.
go look it up and give them the answer, because there was no internet to look it up at. So we would do things like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Something like Google.
We would answer. We were Google, yes. We would answer. So Friday nights, once high school sports started, before I began covering high school sports the next year, we had our we had stringers that would go to every high school game, and
Mm-hmm.
they would call us. Hey, these are high school kids from one of the schools, and they would call up. We'd answer the phone, and they would say, "Hey, we have the notes from this game, and Euclid beat Cleveland South 42-20." And so, who was the leading rushers? James Johnson had 4 touchdowns, 220 yards. So we would write up, like, after we got all the notes from them, we would write up maybe 3 paragraphs and send it, give it to the editors. And they would, so that way the newspaper could have a little blurb about every game in the area, in addition to the big
Wow.
game that they sent writers out to cover. And I tell you, Joel, the first time I saw my little blurb, my little 3 paragraphs, I was like, yeah, and
I made it.
it didn't have my name on it. It didn't have my name on it.
But you knew it.
I knew that was my stuff,
Yeah.
and I was excited. And then, but eventually, like I said, about 9 months later, they sent me out to the Akron area bureau, and I started covering high schools out there, and just worked my way up. About 4 or 5 years later, got promoted to covering the Cleveland Cavaliers in the NBA, and then that's where my career covering pro sports really took off.
Wow. So you've been in TV, newspaper, probably radio, different elements. What, since you've been in for about 3 decades or so, what has changed and what has surprisingly stayed the same?
Wow. So much has changed. Number one, I remember when I was an intern, that first internship I had with the Plain Dealer, when I showed up, they sent me out on my first assignment and gave me what is really the precursor to the laptop computer. It was it was made by Radio Shack. And it was about the size of your computer screen on, like a 15-inch computer screen or something. But you could only see like the actual screen was about this big. The whole apparatus was about the
all
size.
around it. Yeah.
You could see like 8 lines of type. And so you would write your story on that. And then, so I was covering high school sports. I'm writing my story on that. All you see is 8 lines of type. I would have to either set something up with the high school beforehand, which is ideal, where they would let me into the school after the game. And I would have a phone line there that I could plug my computer into and transmit the story to the sports desk in Cleveland. Or they had these things called couplers. And if you go to a payphone, this is when they had payphones, and you would have to take the payphone, stick the receiver into the couplers, press down, and hold the couplers down until you can see the story transmitting through the screen, and you'd have to hold it like that. And I'm telling you, Joel, there were times where, for whatever reason, I couldn't get with the school and get my story, go to the school and write. And so sometimes I would park. I might write from the game in the press box. Occasionally, maybe a handful of times, I wrote in my car. I parked at a gas station with a payphone. Nobody else is there. It's dark. I'm writing in my car, and then I hook it up to the payphone. Few times, went to a nightclub or a bar, more like a bar. Couldn't find a payphone. Run in. Hey, I'm Chris Broussard. I know you don't know me. I'm Chris Broussard from the Plain Dealer, high school sports writer. I have to send this story. Can I use your phone? They let me use the phone. And I mean, that is what it used to be like. Wow. And so obviously now, as time progressed, by the time I was covering the NBA, which was 1995, I had a better laptop computer, and you just the couplers were gone. It was then you'd hook it into the computer. But so that's obviously one thing that's changed. And then the nature of coverage has changed in that, I wrote for when newspapers, the New York Times, when newspapers were king. I wrote for ESPN, the magazine. Magazines are not nearly what they used to be either. And so that was different than today. I think long form writing, I don't want to say it's dead, but it is not the same reading a 4,000 word story on the internet as it is in a newspaper or a magazine. It's just not, for whatever reason. It's harder for me, at least, to get through a 4,000 word story on screen than, particularly if I'm not seated and you know what I mean? Yeah. Whereas a newspaper or magazine, that's why in New York they have the tabloids, because you can sit on the train, the subway, and it's easier to read the tabloids, with the way they're formatted. So I think that's something that's changed. And then when I covered the NBA, I wrote game stories. The Spurs and the Knicks in the finals, I'm writing the game story. Today, they still write game stories, but they're very different. I was describing the action in the game, whereas now, maybe because of the feeling of everybody's seen it, if you're not watching on TV, it's on your phone, whatever. But game stories now aren't as descriptive of that game as they used to be. They go into other background and other, which is good, but other aspects. So the stories are a lot different. So a ton has changed. And look, when I came out of school, if you didn't get a job at a newspaper, if you were into broadcast or journalism, you didn't get a job at a newspaper, a magazine, a television station, or a radio station, you weren't in the business. And it would be hard for you to get into the business because there was no way for you to get experience outside of those four ways. Whereas now there have been people who on the internet, they started their own blog or website, and it became so popular they got hired by NBA.com or
Wow.
ESPN. Or nowadays, if you can start your own YouTube channel and talk about sports, and if you do it in a way that for whatever reason draws enough
Gets eyeballs.
subscribers and viewers, you could either get picked up by a traditional
True.
outlet, or you can make enough money yourself where that could be your living. Then this is obviously beyond sports as well. But so I do think the internet, while there aren't as many traditional opportunities as there used to be, because newspapers aren't what they used to be and magazines aren't, there are the internet has democratized it to a degree where there are opportunities to get into the business in less traditional avenues, through less traditional.
And if it's good, it will be recognized.
Yeah. And I tell people that everybody's not going to be able to hit it big off the internet, but some people will. And it's like, if you remember, maybe in the late 1980s, early 1990s, when some rappers, hip hop artists, would sell their albums out of the trunk of their car. Master P, I think, did it. NWA did it. And they became so big, they sold so many that a larger record company picked them up. And I equate it to that a lot, where if you're, for whatever reason, if your site hits with people and it compels them to watch it and you get enough subscribers, you could go on to really big things. Everybody's not going to be able to do it, but if you want to try it, it might work for you.
Chris, we're at the top of the hour. We've got to take a little breather here with our sponsor. But when we come back, I want us to talk about you interviewing some of the biggest names in basketball and what that's like, and kind of give us a glimpse into some things around that. So we're going to take a break right now, and then it's about the Rosetta universe. Hi, I'm Joel Freeman, the founder of the Rosetta Universe. Join us in transforming this ancient artifact, the Rosetta Stone, into a modern metaphor for critical thinking and problem solving. Young people today are overwhelmed by information, but most do not have a roadmap for the practical use of that knowledge. By turning thinking into a simple 7-step Rosetta process, we are making it feel doable rather than intimidating. It shifts the focus from being smart to being disciplined, which is a game changer for many students who struggle. Our reach is for the following grade bands: K2, 3-5, 6-8, 9-12, college, and beyond. Give me a call with any wisdom and advice. Here's my personal cell, 410-991-9718. I'm looking forward to our conversation. Well, there you have it. It's the Rosetta Universe. What I've done is I've developed 7 steps using the acronym Rosetta to solve pretty much any problem in about 8 to 10 categories of problems. And utilizing the grand story of the Rosetta Stone, war, hieroglyphics, ancient Egyptian secrets, cracking codes, Napoleon, all of those elements as a gateway to reach this generation, to use their God-given brains before, during, and after engaging technology. This is not an anti-technology play. We're embracing technology fully. But it is the whole idea of, I'm real concerned about this generation coming up. And also, one of the things I developed is, this is the Jack Johnson belt I designed. And this belt is, there's only 700 we're making of these belts worldwide. And this is our fundraiser for the Rosetta Universe. And so when you go to the QR code above or to rosettauniverse.com, what will happen is you can then click on that. It'll show you how an exclusive link where you can order this belt. And the only way to order it is to donate to the foundation. Every penny goes to the foundation. So that's a little bit about I got a little bit of swag on, the Jack Johnson hat, a Rosetta Universe shirt, and got to represent. Well, Chris, coming back to you, you have been with in the locker room with all these guys, interviewing them and trying to get an angle that's different from everybody else. What have you seen about human nature that the average fan doesn't see when you're dealing one-on-one with a lot of these guys?
Wow, that's a great question. Well, one thing you see about human nature, this isn't so much the athletes as it is the journalists. When people are in the scrum, and I mean, it may be 20, 30 journalists and more, actually, if it's a World Series or NBA Finals or something like that, but bunched in, holding their recorders, as close to the athlete as they can, their cameramen there. I've seen people get into arguments and darn near fights with journalists just trying to get their position, So that tells you something about human nature right there. But as far as the athletes, that's a great question. Because I've interviewed almost all the big
most
names
every name, yeah.
in the NBA history. I don't see as many of the younger guys now because I'm in the television studio every day and not going to games as much as I used to. But LeBron James, I did several cover stories for ESPN, the magazine, with him where I had one-on-ones with him. And LeBron's very impressive because most people probably don't think of him as somebody from a really hard knock life, hard scrabble situation. Yeah. His mom had him when she was 16, and he missed school hundreds of days, like over almost 200 days. I think it was as a fourth grader. And because his mom was just struggling to try to make ends meet, and one of his coaches took him in. He lived with their family, was a father of one of his good friends, and that stabilized LeBron. And then, of course, he ended up going to a Catholic high school. And so Akron. He's very polished, and he's obviously handled his business well. So people might look at him now and think he's a suburban kid, or he grew up like that. But he's really his upbringing was probably tougher economically than 90 to 95% of the NBA. Yeah. And so he's very impressive with what he's going on to do. Magic Johnson, very interesting. I really, after many conversations, I worked with Magic on a television show, NBA Countdown for ESPN one season. We were on every episode together. And I got to talk with him a lot. And I came away, Joel, feeling like, man, he was truly an unselfish player. Because I came away thinking he really did not care at all about his statistics. He cared about winning. And he would dominate.
Great insight.
Scoring 2 or 3 points, having a bunch of assists. I asked him, I said, did you want to lead the league in assists? I get it, you weren't a big scorer, but did you want to lead the league in assists? He was like, it really didn't matter to me. I just wanted to win. And I believe him because early in his career, I think his second year, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who was their leading scorer for the first several years of Magic's career, got hurt. And Magic, that Kareem didn't play that night. Magic scored his regular season career high, which was like 38 points. Now remember, I'll go back after this. The next night, they thought Kareem was be back. He wasn't. Magic goes out and tops that. I think 39 points or something like that. Then Kareem comes back. Magic goes back to getting his 19 points a game. And also remember, as a rookie, when Kareem sat out Game 6 against Philadelphia, Magic scored 42 points. So the nights Kareem was not there, Magic scored a ton of points. But Kareem was there most of the time, and in those games, Magic had no problem saying, look, Kareem's the number one guy. I'm going to just get our 19 points and dish out the passes and the assists. And our Magic told me this story how as Kareem got older, I think it may have been 1986, 85, 86, 87, one of those years. And Pat Riley went to Magic before the season and said, look, Cap, they called Kareem captain. He's getting older. I don't know that he can carry the load night in, night out anymore. So I want you, Irvin or Magic, to be the number one option offensively. You're going to be our leading scorer. And Magic said, did you talk to Kareem about this? And Pat Riley said, yeah, I already talked with Cap about it. It's good. And Magic said, all right, let's you and me go talk to Kareem about this and make sure he's good with it. And, he was. And so it just, after many of the stories Magic told me, I really came away believing this wasn't just lip service, because a lot of players are going to say they're unselfish. They don't care about stats. They just want to win. But if you look at the situations in his career, it really does seem like that's all he cared about. And that's why he was one of the greatest, not only players, but winners that the league has ever seen.
I love it. I got a follow-up question, but we got Ken here on the screen. He says, what was your best and worst athlete interview and why? You're not under any duress to have to name a name, but if you want to, you can.
Well, best athlete interview. I'll say this. The best interviews I ever had, because I wrote for newspapers. I was a beat writer, so I was at practice every day, at every game, in the locker rooms before the games, after the games, talking to players every day.
Yeah.
But the best interviews I ever did with players were for magazine articles. When I went to ESPN, the magazine. Now, if you had ever told me a magazine writer could have a better relationship or get a better story out of the athlete than the beat writers who are there every single day, I would not have believed it. But when I became a magazine writer, what happens is I would go spend 4 or 5 days with an athlete. And I would be with them. The access was better. We would go out to eat together. We would go be in his car together. I would be in his home interviewing him, family members. Like, I would hang out with him, because you're trying to, as a magazine reporter in particular, my job, my goal was to bring the reader where they'll never be.
Yes.
The average reader will never be able to sit in Boris Diaw, just to name one of the athletes, or Michael Redd or Tyson Chandler, some of the athletes I wrote magazine stories on. We'll never be able to sit in their home.
Or play pool with them.
What their home is like,
the
artwork, the clothing, everything, the furniture, or go out to eat with them and things like that. So that's what I was trying to do as a magazine writer. So I will say this. I don't know that I can name one athlete, but what I will say is magazine stories were my best interviews because the access was phenomenal. My, I guess, most memorable magazine coverage piece was we did it for ESPN the magazine in, I want to say it was 2006. We did a series or a project on how they're developing basketball players around the world. Because this was when, if you remember, Joel, this was when other countries were starting to beat us in basketball. 2004, we lost with LeBron James and Tim Duncan and all these guys. I believe Duncan was on that team, but Sean Marion, all these guys. And they lost in the Olympics. I think got the bronze medal. Then we lost the next year in some type of international competition. And so we did an article or a series on how they develop athletes around the world. So we sent one writer to South America, one stayed here in America, and I believe followed Greg Oden in his development.
Mm-hmm.
You remember Greg Oden?
I do remember.
One went to Europe, one went to Asia, and I went to Africa, Senegal, where they had the first basketball academy was in Senegal on the continent. And so going to Africa, I went first for like 2 weeks, and it was an awesome experience. I think every African American, if they can, should get to Africa. It was just I went to the slave dungeons, where the enslaved Africans have been held, and I got to see all of that. And just being over there was a great experience. Then I went back a month or so later for a week, and that was my favorite experience as a sports writer. My worst interview, this wasn't really an interview, but so I covered the New Jersey Nets before they went to Brooklyn, and Stephon Marbury was on the team, and we had a good relationship. And his second year there, they started off terribly. I think they were 1-9, and he was like leading the league in scoring or close to it, if not leading the league. But they weren't winning. He was playing individually, putting up numbers, but it wasn't helping the team. So I wrote an article, talked to some players, people in the organization, and the general tone of the article was that he was playing selfishly and it was hurting the team. And so I wrote that, and he got upset, and his mom got involved, and she was upset.
Oh my goodness, that's not
and
good.
So I had this good relationship with him. He stopped talking to me for about 50 games.
Oh my goodness.
Now, it didn't hurt my coverage because whenever he was being interviewed, I was just there with the other beat writers, holding my recorder there, and I'm getting his quotes, and I just use them. He just wouldn't answer a question directly from me. And I asked the Nets, I was like, look, tell him, come talk to me so we can work it out. It wasn't me. I was just the messenger. I didn't say it. You know what I mean? He wouldn't do that. But they started winning a little bit. He was playing a little differently. And he saw my coverage. I did not base my coverage of him on how he was not talking to me. Yeah. I didn't write, I'm going to really kill him now and start writing stuff about him.
The power of the pen.
He was playing well, and he should have made the All-Star team and this and that. And he saw that, and eventually, as time went on, he started, we worked it out. Actually, I felt a thawing. So then there was one game I said, let me try something. I asked him a question, and he answered it. And then, like, the next day at practice, I went up to him. We started talking. We worked it out. All good. And so, but yeah, that was the worst experience I would have with a player. But again, that worked out. But so that was is how I would answer that question.
You remember the movie Almost Famous?
Yes.
And how he got real close with the rock band, and that was kind of like kind of a weird situation. And they say you lose your journalistic objectivity or whatever it is for the Rolling Stone magazine.
It's interesting because there are old school writers that kind of feel like you shouldn't get close to the players, but it's almost impossible. Like when you're around players every day and you're obviously trying to connect with them in a way outside of sports to some degree, you know what I mean? So you can develop a relationship. So they'll tell you things, maybe give you scoops or just feel comfortable with you and give you a good story. You can get close. I mean, there's several athletes that I've developed friendships with, and you are like, look, I have to still remain objective. And that was my point. Like I said, Marbury and I had a good relationship, but I still had to be objective and write the story. But you're human. And what I say is, it doesn't, if I would talk to athletes, I would say, look, it doesn't benefit you to be rude and mean to the journalists because they have the final word. And I'm not saying you have to be best friends with them or whatever, but they're human beings, we're human beings. If you just treat us with respect and give us the time of day when it's your time to talk, that will have an impact on how we cover you, just subconsciously, if not consciously, and people will tend to give you the benefit of the doubt. Now, I will say this with podcasting, you ask how things are different. Obviously, podcasting is huge difference nowadays. And that does give the athlete access to the fans and vice versa without the middleman of the media. And so nowadays, fans can hear straight from the athlete without hearing it filtered through the article that the media or reporter wrote. And so that is good for both the athletes and the fans. And I know some journalists hate that because they feel like, man, the athletes don't give you the real story. They only give you what they want you to hear. If the athlete on his podcast interviews other athletes, he doesn't hit them with the hard questions. He doesn't grill them. If they say something provocative, he doesn't follow up. There's no disagreement. There's no pushback. And I agree with that generally. But we still can do that.
Yes.
As journalists, we do that. But even if the athletes don't do that, when LeBron James is on a podcast with Carmelo Anthony or some other,
Shannon Sharp,
Taylor Brunson, and Josh Hart, whatever, he's more comfortable with the other athletes than he is with journalists. He shows you more the real LeBron. Doesn't have that wall up where, all right, I'm talking to the media, let me put my best face on. He's just, man, Carmelo's my boy. Like you can hear it in their tone, their mannerisms, the things they say. Now, again, as journalists, you try to get that close to players where the real them will come out. And I've done TV or internet, video interviews with LeBron and other athletes where I do feel like they came out and I got them to be themselves. But I don't know that you can doubt that they clearly feel more comfortable with other athletes.
Sure.
Some who they've known since they were teenagers and grew up playing AAU ball with. So there is a place for the athletes having their own podcast because the fan gets to see LeBron or whoever it may be as they really are without putting on the front for the media, the public.
Yeah, when I served as chaplain, I came at a time where I was one of the first three in the history of the NBA.
That's awesome.
And so they didn't know how to deal with me. Speaking of upper management, interns, players, everybody who's involved in the sports entertainment around that team. And the players, they didn't know how to deal with me. And especially at that time, I looked very young. I was 25, but I looked 15. This white guy from Canada, it's like, whew, I'm supposed to spill my guts on that guy.
You have the long hair?
Well, no, I had hair cut. That was about 7 years prior. But I found that as long as the players were treating me with deference, I wasn't in. When they started teasing me, then I was in, not in the fraternity of players, but I was getting close to being in with them.
Right.
And so I'd play jokes on them, they'd play jokes on me, and it was just the way we would work it out. But also I found that by getting close to their parents, especially their mother, then I could go in and see Calbert Cheney, let's say, and say, hey, I had a good talk with your mom this morning. And he's perking right up, and he says, Chuckles at 6:30. He was there.
Mom said you better come to chapel. No, look, I think you make a great point, Joel, and I don't know what your opinion is on this, but I do think because obviously now every team has a chaplain, and there are other ministries that are around the players and stuff like that. And I do find that in many cases, I won't say all, but many cases, the athlete doesn't show his real self, authentic self, to that chaplain or minister.
Yeah.
And so the minister thinks one thing of the player and how he's living for God or whatever, and there's a whole nother side that the minister isn't seeing.
Yeah.
And so I do think whatever your position, whether it's a chaplain, minister, reporter, whatever, if you really want to get the real deal and know what's really going on, you do have to just get in and get as close to it's not even just athletes, but as close to the person as you can and get their trust where they can really trust you, and then they show you their real self.
We got like 3 minutes left, but very quickly, I'll just share this, that how I did that. I write books, and like a 20-second conversation with Shaq before a game is a long conversation.
Yeah.
And because he'd get the game face, he's working on an injury or whatever it might be that's going on, or maybe he had a fight with his girlfriend or wife, spouse before. Not speaking of Shaq, but some player, and so they got some things on their mind. And so I would bring books with me, and I would give it to them. This is all pre-digital, and then what would happen? I put my phone number in there, and then if it's on a Friday night, they got the flight back. There's no TV, no cell phones for them to be watching and get distracted. So they're reading the books. And sometimes a guy would fall asleep with the book on the seat next to him, and another guy would walk by and liberate the book. Then I'd get a phone call from another player on Saturday morning or afternoon. And that's the way they would now be able to put their finger on my pulse by reading what I had written. Yeah. And that I found caused us to go warp speed into relationship.
Yeah.
And friendship and trusted.
That's great because they saw, and I did give books to a few players. I gave music to some players, but whatever the case, with you giving books to them or something else, it shows you think of them as more than just an athlete.
Yes.
And more than just an object for you to get something out of. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where you develop the trust, that it's through other things outside of the sport. It's that you care about, have an interest in them as a person. And I think that's an example of what you were doing.
And oh my, I was going to share something else, but we only have a minute. Talk about the King movement and what you do with men and why.
Yeah, the King movement is an acronym that stands for knowledge, inspiration, and nurture through God. It's an international men's movement that really wants to help men reach their God-given potential in every realm of life through brotherhood, fellowship, teaching, training, accountability, support, and encouragement. And we have chapters throughout the country, every region of the country, about 20 chapters. We soon are starting a chapter. I say international because we're soon starting a chapter in Kenya, over in Africa. And it is about, promoting fatherhood and family and just helping men be the men that God has created them to be. Because we feel like, if we can help men become the men they were created to be, then that can lead to stronger and better families, lead to better communities, children, better communities, and ultimately a better nation as far as America. And so that's really what the King movement is about in a nutshell.
And what's the best website if someone wants to have you come and speak, wants to connect with you in some way?
If they want to check out the King movement, you can go to kingmovement.com, kingmovement.com. If you want to try to book me to speak, I speak at colleges and churches throughout the country. You can hit me go to Chris Broussard Speaks,
Okay.
chrisbroussardspeaks.com, or you can email us. Yeah, I'll give my personal email because you can email that. I'll send it to my business manager. But Chris D is in David Broussard at Gmail. Chris D Broussard at gmail.com if you're interested in having me speak. And like I said, I do speak throughout the country about various topics.
I've got a fancy camera that goes rogue on me every once in a while, so I apologize for that. Thank you so much. Hey, Chris, this hour's gone by far too quickly. And thanks
I'm long-winded, if you haven't noticed.
Oh, no. If you're open, we'd do this again maybe, some months down the road if you're interested.
This was fun. I really enjoyed it.
A lot of fun.
You have just experienced another episode of the Mischief Maker broadcast. Hit the subscribe button. Connect at chiefmischiefmaker.com. Thanks for coming along for the ride. And hopefully, you are now a bit closer to becoming a mischief maker in your part of the world.